Hey, hey.
Hello.
All
Howdy,
right.
everybody.
Yep, y'all, we got Scott Bowman here with us tonight. Thank you, Scott, for coming on with us.
Thank you for y'all having me.
Yeah, man, we're delighted and lucky. So we was just
Absolutely,
talking
absolutely.
before we went live about your little box there. You want to show it to us? And yeah, look at that. Yeah, look at all those RCAs. And it's pretty.
Yeah,
It's
got
gorgeous,
some
man.
got clear coat on it, and it's for two pairs of inputs. I call it a two in, then eight out, eight pairs of outputs. So
Yeah.
you could run four sub amps, four two channels, or four channels. You can
Right.
really almost make it what you. Let me get this thing.
Man.
But I paint these. I have different color candies, and clear coat them. So you
Now, is
can
that
actually,
aluminum? Is that box steel or
yes,
aluminum? Metal?
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So I just shoot over raw to give it that really cool effect.
Yeah, that's cool.
And
It does look cool.
so in the sunlight, it
Oh,
really has like a bling. You'll see the aluminum, and
another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really pops. It looks really great. I can
yeah, but
honestly say I've had one nitro now for I want to say almost 2.5, 3 years. He made me my own personal one for to run 2 4 channels and 8 amplifiers off of that one box. I love it. I've never had a problem with issue out of it. He does great quality work, and I appreciate him.
Hmm.
thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was gosh, it might have been a place called Audio Express or just my first year at Soundtronics back in '99, 2000, and I've always ran Rockford for God years since the like 90, 91 had Rockford Fosgate, and then anyway, I think it was the BD 1500 when it first came out, and it had 12 of them. And as I was, or maybe that was when I had the 500 M's, but anyway, long time ago. Uh, as I was going through the pass throughs, about third, fourth amp, there was nothing there. And
Wow.
we were also an electronics store. So yeah, it had to have been Soundtronics. And so everything I needed was outside in the showroom, because we're a car stereo, home stereo, electronics store. And I
Yeah.
just had this idea to replicate that, and it worked. And I had 12 amps, so I had my Rockford. I still have this thing, a PA2 EQ line driver, and
Mm.
Now,
anyway, that worked. And we had a few other customers. I did some somewhat big builds, back then,
hmm
not like it is today. And they had the same issues, so I would just make them something, and then years later, we didn't have internet really to see stuff.
hmm
And then 2005, I just got so burned out. I had a sponsorship car through Rockford, and I had my '87 Nissan Sentra with 1212s, HX2s, 12s, 12 BD 1500s, and then I also had sponsorship through Memphis Car Audio because we also carried Memphis. So I had a Super Street 1 to 2 car. So I had boxes in both of them, and then I sold everything. I bought a Jeep, got it lifted, did that for a while. Started working at a place called Sound Decisions, and then got turned on through an old friend of mine. Uh, this new company called Sundown, and then started running Sundown. And like I said, the owners and the manager never heard of it. I tried to get them to carry it; they didn't want it. Even showing them, you know, at the time when Jacob had a 3K amp, Jacob was selling it, or you could buy it for the same price as a 1000/1 JL.
wow.
So you know, but anyway, we had started Team Nemesis. It was three of us that were sitting out my driveway. We were wanting to come up with like an SPL team, and so we started getting people on our team, And Mike Jenkins, this was before Mike Jenkins, I believe, was on our team. And I remember he seen this in my truck. Well, I had one, I don't remember if I had it for whatever amplifiers I had back then. And I told him so he wanted me to make him one. And I made him one. At the time, he lived in Fayetteville. And people were asking him what it was. And then he would call me. And then I would start making them. But I didn't even plan on any of this. It just kind of turned into where people wanted these things. And I'd see them at shows. And then I would go to shows. Actually, when I go to Daytona, I'd make a good handful of them. And I would take them to Daytona Beach. Or I'd have orders, and I just, sell them kind of like out of the trunk of my car, but, at the show. Kind of thing to get it out there. It's not a rocket science thing, of course, but it's very flexible and it works. It works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
And, you just have to be, when you make these things, you got to think, even if somebody has 2 amplifiers I've made them for 22 amplifiers, you got to make sure it's good, because if you're trying to be cheap, that's a lot of money in somebody's vehicle.
Yeah.
That's going to light those amps up.
Right.
I don't know. So knock on wood,
And that voltage doesn't drop across all 20 or however many, right?
Well, I suggest anything after, depending on what size, if you got like big 12, 20Ks and you got 4 amps, I would say back in the day, 4 amps you're fine with a high output radio, because you will not see a drop. But as you get into bigger and you get a ton of amplifiers, I suggest a line driver, because that's a big strain on your radio. That's like a load on an amplifier on your deck.
Wow.
And it's trying to supply all that, and then you got all these amplifiers that need this voltage.
Yeah.
So it's always good. Even on my, I got 3 salt 12Ks, and I just have a line driver on it. And back, I didn't really run one. On my NS1s back years ago, I did. Excuse me. And but I kind of do, because I like to have the flexibility where I have my voltage at 3 to 3.5 input going out to all amps, and then my volume on my radio is low, so I don't. If it says 75, and this was like a battle we would have with customers when I worked at a shop, that if their radio went to 100, they wanted to go to 100.
Go 100, yeah.
I'm like, it don't always work like that.
No.
So I don't even want to be near clipping.
Right.
So it's kind of flexible in that way to have like a line driver and dial your system in.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they don't understand. Cut it back 10%.
No, and you would have guys that if they spent $300, they expected it to sound like your $5,000 to $10,000 store demo vehicle, which it's really kind of strange that they would compare something that you had 12 amplifiers and 12 12s to their 2 12s in a prefab box and one amplifier.
Wouldn't that be nice, right?
Yeah.
Only if it was that easy. Well, I guess if you're CRX, it is that easy, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, man, I worked on a ton of those back in the day.
Yeah.
Actually,
a couple 12 and the clamp amplifiers, and you're damn near in the 60s in that thing.
We got a couple of people, running around here that have them in 215s, and they're there. They are there.
Very nasty. Depends on if it's the 4-door trunk car or the 2-door hatchback. Either one, they're both nasty.
Yeah. Now I tell people nowadays, when they do a 155 with 2 12s, I'm like, you still a wall. We couldn't get to do that.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, man,
right?
We had a guy.
Right. I remember trying that with like 6 12s back in the day, and you still couldn't do that. and they're doing it with 212s, and they're like upset.
Never got it.
You know,
You break a 50, right?
I went to RTTI back in '94, I think it was, for Rockford. We're like a big training seminar in Raleigh, and they showed us the new 500Ms, which were Rockford made the very first strappable amplifiers. So they had like an S video cable, and gosh, I think I still have the books to those. I used to save a bunch of stuff like that. I'm like a pack rat. And I told the guy, I said, you know, I want to run 8 of these 500s, and then I'm going to do like 12 12s. And I remember the guy that was doing it, there was from Rockford. I remember the attitude was like, yeah, okay, you know, but eventually I did, and I got the pictures to prove it. But when I had my mind set on something, paychecks went to everything on car audio, you know.
Yeah.
Actually,
That
I
happened.
still have some stuff
He's
from
absolutely
Rockford
right.
back then. But
60s
some of the
is
stuff-
the new 50. I agree with that.
what's that?
I was just agreeing with Steve's comment there, where he said 60s is the new 50s. I would have to agree.
Exactly, because hold on, my first wall was 6 W6s with 2 500Ms. That's what I start out with. We carried JL, Audio Express, and I remember at a local show on the AC meter, I did a 49.9, and that was like, wow, you know. And back then we couldn't afford an audio control meter because they were like $2,000 and $3,000,
Right.
and only one shop had it. And they were the guys that sold stroker and kicker, so there was always like a battle between us two shops. So you went by the ear meter, DJ Magic Mike, Bass Mechanic, whatever sounded louder. That was a song you played. Or if you think this sounded louder, and then at the last second you got cold feet, so you throw in your old your one that you always played, you know, bass music. Because test tones was just something that was starting out. You know, people were figuring out.
Yeah.
But then I got the first 1212, and I think with the 8 500Ms, and gosh, back then the Outlaw, I think I was only doing like a 56, and that was on the audio control meter, so that wasn't hardly jack compared to today.
Right.
And that was a big,
pretty loud back then, though.
yeah, a little Nissan Sentra with, you know, a Pac-Man box, and gosh, I think I
I
had.
remember the old Pac-Man boxes. Wow.
Yeah, and back when I had Tweed, so Tweed was like, you know, Tweed was in. I evolved from carpet to Tweed.
The wild color, the green and the purple, and yeah.
Mine had blue with a little speck of red, and it might have had a purple and black, or it was like a funky color in my Nissan. But then I got a sponsorship through Rockford, and I did my third 1212 box, and that's with the 8 BD 1500s. And 2003 NSPL finals, Alan Dante came up to me, and I didn't know who this guy was. It was this white guy with red hair. And when he spoke to me, I was kind of like a dog with my head turned. I was kind of like, huh? Because he spoke broken English. And, you know, it was all audio control or B&K or, God, what was it beside? It wasn't, there's B&K. It wasn't audio control. It was Linear X meter. And Fred Wright was doing it. We all drove up to Charlotte and did that. And anyway, he said, well, after this is the last year of these meters, and there's a new meter called the Term Lab. Do you want to come over here and try it? And I was like, sure. You know, I'm doing I think like a 61 or 60.3 or something like that. Outlaw. I think it was a 60.3 Outlaw. Because the car was a sealed box. It fell on its face with the windows completely up. It had to have windows down because, you know, it was a little hatchback Nissan. Anyway, put that in there, and I went to a 56. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking, I don't like this new meter. You know, it knocked me down pretty bad. So about 2 years later, that car was just sitting, and I ended up just selling everything. I just pretty much got burned out because I had two sponsored vehicles, Memphis and Rockford. And gosh, my Nissan is out. One of my Nissans is out in at the local pick and pull. So I imagine I left the fiberglass door panels. Gosh, the box was in there all painted, part of the dash, the kick panels. I couldn't get the hatch open, so there was a Rockford changer in there from 2002.
Wow. The stuff we throw away, man.
I couldn't get it open. I tried prying it, but the car just sat in the backyard, and it was just in the way. Literally the brakes were locked up, and it just sat for so many years. I mean, this was like it got towed off last year or 2018. No, it was actually last year.
Dang.
Yeah.
Well, that just hurts. Just hurts.
Yeah. And that was Baltic birch. No one had ever heard of around here anyway of Baltic, and that was through a friend of mine in Myrtle Beach, Tom Hill. And we were all friends with Jeff Wright, a lot of us, and they had built a lot of loud vehicles that were in magazines back in the day. And, we evolved here in Wilmington to MDF. So when I would go on my days off and work up there at Audio Rhythms, which has been closed down for years, he did a little kick test, like break this, now try to break this Baltic birch like he did the MDF. And he's like, this is what we're going to build. He helped me build my 1212 box. And that was like his signature box. And I liked it so much that my third or fourth 1212 was in my Blazer for 1 year. I built that same style box that I just loved, like a W box. Sorry, I'm sitting here just running my mouth, but
that's fine. That's what we brought you for. We get a little knowledge, right?
Exactly. That's all.
This is what I was working on, and this is for a stripper pole, and these are the mounts I weld. So these are 4x4 inch, 1/4 inch thick, and so I have like a heim joint that I weld to like 1 1/4 DOM tubing. And these are going to be painted base clear black. Same with this. So this is like a 2 inch by 4 inch because it's got to mount up above the behind the windshield. So got to fit.
Right.
But that's what I was doing when I earlier, just trying to weld some of these
box braces or any of that made up by any chance?
Do what's that?
I said, do you have any of your box braces made up or any of that by any chance?
I sure don't. I wish I did. I'll probably have some to show, like finished painted, and can touch probably by Wednesday or Thursday. So
now, do you design your speaker boxes, or do you have somebody else?
Yeah. No, I do all my own stuff. Doing it for so many years.
I always ask because everybody does it different. But so do you have a particular like port area to either cone area or enclosure volume that you like to hit, or do you just kind of go with your gut?
I have, years ago, I just built stuff off the top of my head. And I'm talking about like 1990, 91, 92.
Back then, most things.
Back then, I just built stuff to fit, and it was loud, for the time.
Yeah.
But as I started working at a shop, we were doing all stuff on paper. And even my very first band pass in 09, I think it was, the 1212. No, excuse me. Well, when I got the Blazer, I bought it from the place I worked for, last shop I worked for. It was the store vehicle. I had Sound Decision stickers all over it. And I begged him to sell it to me. I wanted to get back into it, and I was tired of having little import cars and stuffing a bunch of stuff in there. But anyway, I did a Burt box. Why I did, I do not know. And then a teammate of ours, I took him up to buy Jacob. At the time, Jacob had a I think it was an 88, 89, 90 Chevy Silverado with a camper shell on it. And it was Justin Thornton's truck that Jacob had bought, and it had a band pass with 4 REMT 18s. So we went up there, and once I heard it, I was like, this is what I want. You know, why am I doing another Burt box?
Right.
You know, I don't know why. I've done that in the past. You know, I'm just not that guy, I guess. That takes a special person to, you know, because I've had some Burt vehicles and people go, "Can I hear it?" I'm like, it's 63 hertz. You know.
Right.
But anyway, I probably had 2 or 3 sheets of paper on that box. And honestly, I really don't even remember I've been using like a program for
Right.
years. So if I don't do something all the time, I really forget.
Yeah, yeah, we all that way.
And when the older you get, yeah.
Right.
Even door panels you might have made the year before, you're like, how did I exactly go about getting
Right.
that to do that? And I remember the A and then the G and H, but I can't remember anything in between. But
Yeah.
like cone area, it all depends. Port area, I have a roundabout, but I just kind of play with stuff until I get it to where I want it.
Yeah.
I don't really have a big scientific way. There's far better people than me at doing boxes. I just have my own little way of just doing things.
Well, when you just do them for 20 or 30 years, it just kind of come that way, right?
Yeah. You just get like it's weird. You get like a feeling sometimes. I'm not gonna say it's just like off the top of your head. Well, like you're just taking a guess without measuring or just cutting and somehow it's there. But
Absolutely.
like when I did Arthur Grimes's Civic two or 3 years ago, I think I changed it 3 or 4 times before the final product. And this is in a 90 maybe hatchback with 4 12s, no wall. I think he does. I think he at Ruckus. I think he did close to a 58 on music,
Mm.
and I think it was 57 or 58, maybe a 58 or maybe high 57s. But when it comes to my stuff, I'm lazy, and I've had that same 12. That same 615 box since October of 2011.
Wow. That's a
I had
long.
this. I cut the 1212 box out. I liked it. Had a center port. It just broke windshields immediately. There was no. If it was, it just it sucked, and I liked the way it sounded. And then I was like, you know what? I want to do lesser subs and be louder and not maybe break a windshield. So I moved from a center port, which I really liked better because it was equal for everybody. Seats were in to driver side port, and it exceeded what I wanted it to. And I had so many scribbles on paper on that box.
Hmm.
You know, I literally had it playing because I was also doing a build at the same time, and I jumped off to hurry up and do mine. And it was me and Tyrone Houston. I did his Hummer back in 2011, and he started off with American Bass HD subs. Shredded those things. They were not bandpass friendly. Mike Singer had told me that he hated them subs. Oh God, Bob, please don't. Anyway, so the Nightshade 2 was coming out, so we all paid and got them. Well, waited several months for them, and I went and picked them up. And as soon as I put those in his Hummer, swapped them, just dead swap, he gained over dB and his frequency dropped. And then we were waiting on the NS1s, and they came out, I think, February of 2012. So I scrambled to get everything in my truck done. And 2 weeks before Daytona 2012, I was testing. And every time I shaved the port down, shaved the port. And once the windshield broke, I stopped. I called my guy Mac, put a new windshield in, and I just left it. And you can still see the SPL aluminum tape on the port. I have not messed with it.
Wow. And since 2011.
And that's an MDF box, by the way.
Dang.
That box was the very first shell from 2008
Sometimes
or
that box
9
leaves me alone.
with the 18s. And once I was like, why am I doing a Burt box? I just cut the baffle out, and then I did the 1212 baffle. Cut that baffle out, and I just kept that shell. And if you ever see one of my subs out, you can see the outline of the 1212 box where it zigzags.
That's cool.
So it's pretty hideous, because when I got back into car audio, to compete and have fun again, it's really in your blood, and it's really hard to. It's like an addiction, like me buying tools.
Yeah.
Very
Which I've heard of that
an
big time. I didn't plan on this to go as far as I did with it. So looks did not matter to me on my truck. The last thing I did that looked good and has been in a Haynes manual, which I have. Select Products in Florida's fiberglassing catalog. I was in it, which they've been out of business for years. And been Daytona Beach, took third place. I had to go against Tommy McKinney. And this was not a, I'd say it was loud with the windows down, but you go up against guys with vans that were strictly there for burps. Mine looked pretty cool and was painted and had vinyl and fiberglass ceiling. And, but then when I got to my Blazer, I was thinking this wasn't going to last long. I was going to do it for a few years. And then it is what it is now. So
Yeah.
it looks like hell. But it still works, and it's still, it's not the loudest thing, but it still does really well.
Right.
Like we were talking earlier about the about doing a 60, and I remember designing boxes for guys, gosh, almost 10 years ago. All I want to do is do a 60. All I want to do is do a 60, or a 58 on music, or these was with walls. And now I think it's like 70s is becoming that, but you're not really seeing a street legal vehicle now, because if you get to that point, it's just shredding your vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm 65, almost a 66, which I don't compete anymore. But 2017 was the last year I competed. Didn't even do my best score. Just some dumb stuff. But anyway, I just got tired of windshields.
Yeah, I bet.
And my truck is just shredded. And after Ruckus, I realized actually almost a month ago, I was painting in here. And whenever I'm going between coats, I go sit in my truck because, the fog is pretty intense and, wearing a mask, whatever. But I went to the passenger side and was just sitting. I'll get online with my phone. And I looked at the passenger door, and, man, it was pretty messed up. And I just don't have time to fix it. The regulator is broke off in two spots, but where the door latches to the striker is split, and it goes down to stuff I've already fixed with steel. And but it breaks around all the strong stuff, and these are already my set of doors.
3 is just ripping stuff, I've noticed.
Yeah. And I just don't have time. And actually, I played it last week for the first time since Ruckus. And I get out and drive it more than I ever did, but I don't play it a whole lot. Things in where I live, they're building so much that literally all your little secret spots now are disturbing somebody. So I have one place I can go, but I have to be careful. The place around the corner from my house, they're building houses, but I would always back up and fire toward the woods. Well, I didn't realize there was a housing development over there.
Oh,
And I think it was early this year. Yes, because I had the Salt 12Ks, just got them, and I was kind of playing around with it. And some guy pulled up, and he's probably seen this. He's about my age, I guess, so he was probably wondering why this older guy's got all this stuff in his truck. But he was complaining. I said, "I'm not doing this to be disrespectful. I'm here because I'm thinking there's nobody else around me. I don't
yeah.
see houses, but I didn't realize there was houses on the other side of these woods." And he was shaking his windows and all that. And then next thing I know, when he pulls away, the cops come. So I have a little video on YouTube, but I was trying to feel out the cops. They were super cool, but I didn't know if they were going to be cool, and they wanted me to play it for them. And I really wish I'd have talked one of them into getting inside, or I'd have took the driver's seat out, because it's a night and day difference with the seat in and the seat out. But still, one guy stood back when I hit it. But it was just kind of funny that the cops wanted me to play it. And I was like, well, this guy complained. He said, well, we're here. What else can they do? And I was like, cool. Because
Right.
I've had cops before where they're not so nice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Every
yeah.
time I've gotten pulled over with my system, I wound up giving demo on the side of the road. Just wonder what people think as they're driving by. you know.
Well, I used to have this little thing I did, and I used to do a lot of unmarked cars, and I used to do a lot of canine units for the city of Wilmington, some of the sheriff's department, mostly city of Wilmington, some Brunswick County. And the canine units, I would do what they would call bailout systems. So if a canine unit was on the scene and you ran from this guy, he has a keypad around his, like around his neck. And so I had it to where they would slap that keypad and that back door flies open. So the
Wow.
dog will run you down. And so I have a shock like you would see on a hatch, and then a door popper, and a door flies open. And but anyway, whenever I would work on any of these cop cars, I would always show them my little blue Nissan that had a park around the side of the building. So if they ever seen me, they all liked it. But if any of them were out, they would know that was me, I guess, and wouldn't mess with me. So I never had a
Right.
problem with that car.
Hmm.
But back in the early 90s, a place called Carolina Beach, where I grew up at, it was not so friendly. Back when you would be at the stoplight, some guy's mouth was moving, and you're young, and they're yelling, but you can't hear them.
All right.
Or a cop would pull you over. Hey, I can hear you across the street, or blah 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 blah. But stereos are nothing like back then, like they are now. It was we were doing 133, 140s. You were something. 150 was impossible in the early 90s.
It was
You
tough.
know, and look at that, how laughable that is, and what somebody in a truck
Unless
with
you're on
12
the
can do. Go back in time, you'd be blowing all these people's minds, and all these crazy boxes, and the big the big craze in 92, 93 was isobaric,
Yeah.
and none of them were loud that I have ever heard, but they were so cool. I've
Yeah.
only heard a few of them that were decently loud at the time, but for the amount of woofers, um, it was just that cool factor,
Yeah. They
you
were
know.
cool.
But even back then, I had a Volkswagen Scirocco hatchback. I had no back seat. Back in '92, I had 412s, and I had two Rockford double when they come out with these double stack magnets and inverted cones. I had two of those and two Orion XTRs, and Punch 45s and Autotex apps, and no back seat. And
Wow. Those Punch 45s were the real deal.
We used to say at Audio Express when people would go, we give them a price because we sold them for $249 or $250. That was $1 a watt because it was really a 22 and a half watt amplifier on paper.
Right.
But it was a 250 watt amp basically. And, if we had any of our friends or good customers, back then Rockford had burst sheets and they were legit. When it got to the Angel amps in 96, I think it was 97, all of the the graphs on the burst sheets were all pretty much identical. And I figured that's about time when it was just, I don't know, didn't really believe it. But we would go and find the strongest amp in the stock room. And then, for like people that we liked or friends or stuff like that.
I didn't know that about the Rockford amps.
Yeah.
At that time, I had only used linear power amps.
Linear power was awesome. There was one place in town that was called HeadQuest, and they carried linear power. They've been long gone since out of the car audio. They were actually like a TV repair place, and they had home audio, and they did a little car audio too, but they had linear power.
That's
then a place around the corner had Hiphonic.
Like the fireplace there.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. It was a time to really be alive. I actually have a 1980s Punch 45. It's all black. Says the Punch.
Yeah.
And in the later 80s, I had a chance to buy one. I didn't know what it was. And a friend of mine said, I don't know. It just says the Punch. In my head, I said to him, man, that sounds kind of cheap. I'd never heard of it. So I bought a High Comp 4040, which was actually a really good amp at the time. But yeah, I started off with my first subs. I think it was 1988. And I had my dad's old 77 LTD. And I had Sony home speakers.
Wow.
And so, I had a 4-door. So it was this super long car. Literally, when you drove it, it was almost like you sat in the back seat of a car and you seen all these feet of a front end that you just had to, it was like a boat.
Yeah.
But anyway, where the transmission hump was, I had them sitting behind the driver and passenger seat, and they were kind of sitting up like that. And my friend, one of my good childhood friends, actually lives around the corner from me. His dad had a gas station, and he worked there. And I was the kind of guy that thought everything could be done in 5-10 minutes, like it was easy, like a lot of customers. Oh man, it's easy. I seen it done. Nowadays I seen on YouTube, all you got to do is yeah, whatever. I pull up to his dad's gas station. I go, hey man, can you put this amp and this radio in for me? And then he'd be like working on it all day, But he put that in. I remember it was a JVC tape deck I bought from a friend of ours for $50. And then my friend, I went and got a high-low. It was a pyramid. I knew nothing about this stuff. I was just a guy turning the knob. And he mounted my amp on the side, right there on the transmission hump. And man, it sounded so good. I didn't know what a crossover was.
Right.
And, I had 2 Sony 8s home speakers with a mid and a tweet. While it lasted, it sounded fantastic because even the amps back then didn't have crossovers.
Right.
You had to buy a passive crossover.
Right.
And they might have had electronic back then, not that I knew of, but it sounded awesome.
They had them, but they were definitely put in between your amplifier and your head unit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then there was a company. There's a place in town that had these little RCA things that were, I can't remember what they were called, but they were little gold or brass looking things, and they were like little crossovers that filtered through your RCAs, but I didn't have that. But I remember seeing
line
those
converters.
I think so. They were just like little dual female looking RCA things, but they were like a bullet.
Your RCAs in and out.
Yeah.
It was just to help with the wine back in the early 80s. Because we wasn't smart enough to realize we didn't have good ground. So we always assumed it was the RCAs.
Yep. And I blew everything in there. And I remember I went to Radio Shack and I bought some Radio Shack 8s. Well, I didn't know what crossover was again, so I was just, where the crossovers were inside the home speakers I was using, and I would blow those up and take them back, and then they would refuse to give me my more speakers. So, I would go to another Radio Shack in town and hand a receipt, and they would give me more of them, and I would go till I ran out of people who knew me.
Right.
I did that at Advance Auto too with batteries. Because I didn't know, I just used a front battery. I didn't know, back then, I might have had 4-gauge. Yeah, I had 4-gauge wire. I didn't know about Big Three, absolutely. None of that stuff at the time. It's just, it was fun time to be alive. If you heard bass, if you heard any bass, it was like, oh my God, it was like, oh my God, the most minimal.
Good old Sparkomatic 50-watt power boosters.
That's the days of the old gold letter kickers,
I got my license in 1983, and then I bought my first tape deck from Radio Shack. And at the local mall here, which is really not much of a mall anymore, there was a Radio Shack. I bought a tape deck, had Dolby, metal, all that stuff. You guys ever heard of that? For the different kinds of cassettes?
Yeah.
Well, I had the first salesman threw some BS on me, and I didn't know better. He said, you're going to burn up your speakers if you don't use a 100-watt amplifier or something like that. Well, I couldn't afford that because back then tape deck was like I think it was like $200+. And I worked as a dishwasher to buy that. And then my friend Danny installed it out in the parking lot. And I was skateboarding, and then I never forget, I heard Boston playing. And my brother had given me a set of his Jensen 6x9s. And he had made these boxes because they were in his 71 Charger at the time. And I had a 74 Plymouth. And then he gave me a Sparkomatic power booster. My friend Danny hooked all that stuff up. And it would play, and then you would hit that button, and it got real loud. It was just
right.
Good times. Trying to impress girls, at the beach.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. One thing different about today is back then we didn't really have rebase music and stuff like that, so we're just listening to music. So you had to pull bass out of something that didn't really have a lot of bass, and you had to do it naturally. And man, I'm telling you, I know there are people that say that I just don't hear like I used to, that the stuff really sounds good now. I've just forgotten. I think they're messed up.
All you really had back then was like DJ Mike or the other.
I actually have some stuff from the early 90s and mid 90s. DJ Magic Mike.
Yeah.
And you can go and play it, but the recording, how can I say, even heavy metal, rock and roll, whatever disc I have left, the quality is nothing like it is today.
Of the recording,
it's amazing the quality, and I think Sony first had the very first CD player, and or maybe Pioneer JVC. I think it was Sony.
Sony, I think, did they do the first disc player?
Yeah, I believe so. And it's funny because here's a little history. When I started at Audio Express in the early 90s, the first Alpine CD players had Sony chips in them because Sony owned the rights to that. Kind of funny, huh?
Yeah, right.
But I remember, oh my God. Sony had ES and Sound Decisions, which was actually years later. The last place I worked for, they were the big Sony dealers, and some of my friends had the ES, and a friend of mine, Carl, had that in his car, in his little Thunderbird, and I was like, wow, little mini disc.
I remember those, yeah. They never took off.
Do y'all remember? No, they didn't. And Eclipse used to brag about their you could break their CD in half, but one part in half, and it would play it if it had a crack in it. I believe that was Eclipse.
Yeah.
And because everybody has scratch
Long enough,
CDs, and I guess it would read it
Absolutely.
so many seconds before, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it buffered pretty well. I remember
Somewhere in
that.
my toolbox, I have a brochure when I worked at Audio Express when it came out with the 3-disc changer in dash, which was a really cool concept. They were very slow.
Mhm.
They broke down. Toyota put them in their Forerunners, and we used to take them out and have to send them off to downtown radio in Virginia. I think they were in Virginia Repair Center, and it was a cool concept, but man, problems, problems, and problems, and problems. Like Bose. Did y'all ever hear? A friend of mine used to say this all the time, Tom. No highs, no lows, must be Bose. But Bose sounds awesome nowadays.
Yeah.
But
Now,
yeah, we
yeah,
used
back
to.
to the 90s. No.
Now we used to take Bose out and send them off to get repaired, and
Hmm.
it got to where I think it was down a place called Downtown Radio in Roanoke Rapids or something like that. Was the repair center because I worked for a chain store. Um, got to the point where they didn't want to repair stuff for Bose anymore because it was just, I guess, kept coming back. And I remember doing when the NSX came out, and I think it had a single sub. I can't remember, but I remember it was like a trying to figure out how to take the door panels apart because no screws were shown, and it was like a being very careful. It was a very expensive car at the time,
Uh-huh.
kind of like Mercedes and BMWs where they had hidden screws. It wasn't like the cheap American vehicles at the time, but just taking stuff out and sending it off. Then you had to put it back in because you got paid for it, and we didn't make a whole lot of money. And but then that car would come back, and you had to put it in, and it sucked because you already got prepaid for everything.
Right. Yeah.
But
It was fun.
car shows, car stereo. Oh my god, dude! To go to a car stereo contest and you didn't really know anything, and there was the big guys because they had it all figured out at the time, and we were just doing stuff, and you would just take it to a show, and um, you'd see a guy that might have a 250-watt amp, and I had punch 45s, and he had a punch 150 or a power 1000, or these monster Autotex or Kenwood. Actually, Kenwood had something that looked like a suitcase.
Hmm.
And Phoenix Gold,
The Memphis.
which my friend John Lorick was a Phoenix Gold dealer in town. And I don't know, it ain't nothing like it was. Nowadays we got amplifiers that would destroy anything.
Right.
What we had back then, and then the price. Oh my God, the prices for
Yeah.
stuff were a lot more expensive in a way for what you got. I remember looking through our price sheets. The Power 1000, I think, was 2,800, 2,800. For it was a 4-channel, was it 250 by 4 amplifier, and that was like, it's like kind of like Dodge, Chrysler, and Ford back in the day, the big three. You had Orion, you had Rockfords, you had um, God, there's a handful of them, and God.
US was happening then, I think.
US was awesome. I actually had an old US amp. It was black,
Right.
and I didn't know really what I had. This is right at the time before I started working at Audio Express, and a place that's no longer business, Coast Car Stereo, which was the kicker, then Autotech and Stroker. They were our competition in town, and they had a big VLX 400 that was purple, and it was
Right.
hanging from the ceiling. It was gigantic.
Yeah, those things are long.
But I got rid of it. I didn't know what I had
Wow.
at the time, and just stuff like that. When they had what old school, um, was it old school car stereo on Facebook, the little page,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all the
that's
people
right.
posting all this stuff, and I'm like, I used to
Yeah.
install that, or I might have had that little amp at the time, or I used to install it, or so and so around the corner they used to install those, and
Well, I tell you what, if you ever kind of bored, which I know you do business, you're not, but there's a guy. I don't know if you know Brad Newsom. Do you know him?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you
I
ever
actually
been to
met
his
him in
place?
RCA box years ago.
Have you ever been to his place?
No, but he
Listen,
posts some
let
outrageous
me tell you
pictures.
something. I did go there, and it is like, I won't say it's like a museum because he's got the stuff, and he's changed since I went there. He built more room, but when I went there, he had a garage, basement, whatever it was. Man, there is so much car audio. I guarantee you, there's not a store out here that's not a distribution that has more audio than he does. I promise you, there is not a store that has as much audio as he does, and a lot of it is old school stuff,
Yeah.
right? Uh, Man, if you get the opportunity to go visit him and he lets you, you should definitely do it, man. Whatever you're thinking was happening back then, I guarantee you, he's got it on his shelf. It's the coolest
Probably.
thing.
Yeah, I don't know if he does his own installs, but he does some, or who does it, or he does it, does some fantastic work.
Yeah, I think he's been doing them. I know he bought some of those vehicles already built, like the old school stuff, and he wanted to build them back with the old school product. I think that's really what he's doing. So, but but I sat in his Blazer and that little Scion, and man, that Blazer will put the hurt on you. It would, and it does look nice. But I'm not sure he built that or somebody else built it. I don't know how much building he does, but he. But I'm telling you, man, that guy has some audio in his house.
Yeah, he does post pictures, and I think he posted something that he bought off eBay or offline. Um, there was a couple of guys on. Gosh, I don't even know if old school or whatever it is. The page on Facebook is even still
It's there,
uh,
yeah. I see
active.
some post on it, yeah.
I just don't get on
I'm
Facebook
on
as
it.
much. I
Yeah.
do for like the business part of it, and then float on and off. Because sometimes you can get caught up for a long time on here, and you're like, hey, I got to work.
Yeah.
And I'm not as fast as I used to be. Things don't come to my head, but as good as it used to. But yeah, it's just amazing. There was a guy on there that had like a room in his house, and I don't know if any of you guys remember, and he was mounting it on the wall, like all these amplifiers, all these old school amplifiers.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of posts like that. I don't know if it's the same person, but I've seen a few.
I've always like would used to think, man, it'd be so cool to have a wall of subs in your house, and then like maybe you're shaking the crap out of the windows in your house, maybe your neighbors complain out, but just stand there and have a car as what it's like to feel in a car. Maybe you ain't got to do 60s or not, but just
Stand in
I
front
don't
of
know.
it, yeah.
Is anybody out there crazy enough to do that? I don't know. I would if I had lottery
Well,
money.
I took it to a different level, and I have my ceiling over on the work side that I have over there is actually lined with blown speakers, and
Wow.
I mean, there's pretty much everything from DD audio to to sundown. Everything you could think about is over there. I even have some old Wolfensteins over there that are like bolted
Wolfensteins.
to the wall.
Wow. Or were
The
they
Wolfenhagen,
Wolf?
whatever.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
the
red
red
speaker. The
ones, the
red
Wolf.
speaker.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
remember people bringing
I
those into the shop.
I have some pretty old school stuff over there hanging on the wall that I like to keep just for memory purposes.
I tell you, I really wish I would have known the future and kept more stuff than I got rid of. I had a friend,
Boy,
Bernard. Well, he goes by Stan. He's a deputy sheriff now, but back in the very early '90s, he worked at a place called Tallberg Chevrolet. It's Jeff Gordon Chevrolet now, and he was a car detailer. Well, he got a hold of an Orion 250, like the old Orion 250 from like the '80s, later '80s.
Right.
Had a different kind of red. It actually took a bridging module. Well,
I
it
remember
came
that.
out of a vehicle they were doing, and he got a hold of it. And I did something. I think I did a stereo in his truck. He had to look back when lowriders were really in. I had that up until probably 95, 96, and I sold it like an idiot. because I don't know, I didn't think I needed it. I was just, holding on to it. And there was one of the hurricanes we had, and the kid that had it had a wall of JLs in his, I think it was like a 95, 96 Camaro, and it got flooded.
Mm.
And then I had a Power 300, mint condition Rockford Power 300 about around that same time. That was a great, fantastic SQ amplifier. I mean, really back when Rockford made, was still making handmade amplifiers. Sold it. Why, I do not know, because I didn't think I needed it, wanted the money. Stuff like that,
Right.
But
Yeah.
It happens.
Wish I had kept all my stuff too. I
but
don't even know where it went. I never sell anything, but I don't know where all the stuff is. It's gone. I don't have it in my possession.
I'm a hoarder. I have a lot of old school car audio stuff over there. I still have an original pull out Sony tape deck over there.
Oh
wow.
yeah. Right.
Yeah. Um,
Pull-out radios were awesome. They were the true anti-theft vehicle. Um, Radios.
Yeah.
you don't know nothing
Especially for
unless you're
beginners.
walking down the middle of the mall holding that old school radio in your hand. You haven't
Exactly.
lived.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's funny. Can you see that happening today? That would be hilarious.
I traded when CD players first came out. I had traded my friend Norman. He had a Panasonic DP. It was a DP something, DP40 maybe, and I had a Kenwood pullout radio that had buttons that you pushed in, or you pushed in and they popped out for bass and treble. It was
Oh
a
yeah.
tape deck. I had to have the CD player. Well, the damn tape deck sounded better than the CD, and it scratched CDs. It was used, and big mistake.
And CDs were new probably back then. They weren't like they are now.
Yeah,
So you could
yeah,
definitely get some that didn't work out.
yeah. And I remember the tape deck. I had the cassette that attached to my little Discman, and man, I don't know if it was this pure distortion signal coming out of that little CD disc that I was holding on my lap. But
The old
man, when I
water.
played the disc through there, it was slamming.
Yeah. I remember that thing.
I remember the goosenecks. You remember the goosenecks? People had their little disc player on the gooseneck. It was screwed to the side of their transmission hump. Yeah, good times. And then I think it was Pyramid and Blaupunk had like an EQ that you could do, like is like sitting up, like World of Worlds or something, like the little head sitting up. And
Hmm.
man, engine noise, all that stuff. It was a time to
Yeah.
be alive.
Right. Yeah. Whew. Man,
Engine
That,
noise.
that's why
that was
they
a
came out
job.
with them line converters so you could plug them in to get rid of all that.
Oh
Yeah.
God, yeah. Radio Shack had a really good uh, Grand Loop isolator, and before that, I had these little transformers you could buy at the CB shops, and you put it in line on your power wire. Well, we might have 4 gauge, but this thing had maybe like a 10 gauge wire. It get
Right.
like super hot,
Yeah.
or 12 gauge to knock out engine noise. Yeah,
Hmm.
didn't have the wealth of information we have now. You
Right.
learned a little bit as time went on, and then
You found
um,
a tool to fix it. Didn't worry about the education. You just found what fixed it and you went with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember we had Audio Express, a thing called a cookbook, and open it up and you could build your own crossovers.
Yeah.
So we would build crossovers
Yeah.
for people, and we'd have a piece of ABS plastic, and we'd hot glue it, and we have the coil, like a 4 ohm, 8 ohm coil choke with whatever ceramic resistors, blah blah, they called for
Yeah.
woofers and tweeters. To me, things sounded really good back then.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but uh,
It's evolved. I liked it a little better back then, but it is
I
what it is
did,
today.
yeah. I did.
Well,
It
I
was
think we're
fun.
showing our age here, gentlemen.
Not a lot of people had it figured out. You know, you go to a show and everybody had their own little thing they thought was, you know, now it's like you go to a show, it's just like, wow,
Right.
you know. It's fun to give people a demo from my era that maybe they heard something recently that so and so had like a couple of 12s in his trunk, or and then you set them in something with a wall with, you know, 20, 30, 60K, and then man, it hits them and they just freak out.
Yeah.
But it's good.
I'll tell you another something that's pretty cool compared from then to now is back then, none of us were reconing speakers.
No,
Didn't
no,
have the
you had to
knowledge.
send it off.
Nowadays, almost everybody can recon a speaker. If you can't, you
Yeah.
can YouTube it and have it done. Right? Jimmy does them. But
That,
But you know, so I guess what I'm saying is the guys nowadays, they definitely took the knowledge that we had and expanded it. I guess the guys are really doing something. What they do in the parking lot next to their vehicle used to be somebody in a lab doing somewhere. You know, so that's pretty cool.
very cool. You know, a good point is Orion. When I had the two Orion XTRs, they were the DVCs. They had the red lightning bolt.
Which
I
come
had,
out in that was not back then. We didn't have those
you know,
DVCs. That is,
yeah, well, they just came out in like 91, 92 DVCs, and the
it's
blue
not
lightning
bad.
bolt was a single 4 ohm. They had lifetime warranty like Eminem Godfather. So they would just swap it out, send it off, and give you a new sub. Well, you know, nobody does that anymore because things are different.
Yeah.
I think Rockford was like a 3-year warranty, 2-year on the amp, 3-year on the sub, or something like that. And they had their selling point was called advance exchange. We would give you another amp or sub over the counter, but unless you were like a repeat offender,
Yeah.
so many times, and we'd send it off, kind of teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
You know,
Nowadays,
yeah.
everybody sends their subwoofers to me. I recon them. Just hit me up. I got you.
Right.
Well, that's good to know because I if I did know that, I didn't. I don't remember. I don't really care reconing subs. I do it. I still have some. This is a Nightshade 4 shim that Sundown gave me. You know, but
I'd like to
honestly,
have them. We'll have to talk.
I have some old Nightshade 3s. I have some ZV4 shims. SAs, I just do the thing, but I try not to do any of that. I just actually, since I started doing it full time, you know, and I was doing stuff out in the driveway for years, but the amount of traffic I was having because I worked at a shop at the time and everybody wanted to hook up. So I would do it on the side. I would get everything I need from the shop I worked at, amp kit, you know, door speakers, whatever. But I had so much traffic here and I would have people come to my house late at night. And, you know, my kids were little at the time and that got old. And then, you know, you worry about someone breaking into your house or your garage or whatever. And so all these new people that are coming up, you know, I don't get out and about much. I'll take my truck around the corner, drive around town a little bit, play it a little bit. People ask where I live. Oh, I live such and such and such because I just don't want to, you know, have an alarm on the place. But, you know, I don't care.
Right.
I don't want a lot of traffic like it used to be, where I just have random people, they tell their friends, like, hey, you know.
Yeah.
But
so now, are you doing your own thing now?
yeah.
Doing your own thing, and
Yeah, I just do builds, and I make the RCA, the distribution SBC, and stripper poles, box braces.
yeah, that's cool. And now, so what town are you in?
Wilmington, North Carolina.
Now, I know Sundown's in that state. Are you close to them?
I'm about 4.5 to 5 hours, depending on traffic.
Yeah, that ain't very close.
No,
That ain't very close.
it's still
Closer
a
to me.
drive, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know I've been to Wilmington, but I can't think of exactly where it's at.
they're gosh, the very first one was in Troutman. Then they moved to Troutman to gosh, my memory sucks. Um, it was near Hickory. The other one's near Hickory too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I cannot think of it. But
The second one was in Hickory, I'm pretty sure.
it was 20 minutes from Hickory, and the other one is not far. Also, from the old place to Hickory. Gosh, I just can't think. I have to like pull it up online or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not that big deal, but yeah, that's cool. So I was just curious. We started out, we were already talking, so we didn't ever tell anybody exactly what you're doing now,
Yeah,
where you were or anything. So I was like, well, dang, I guess we forgot the basics. Huh.
yeah, this is it to pay bills.
Right.
You know,
And I mentioned this when we were talking earlier. It looks like you do a lot of fabricating from the stuff behind
yeah,
you.
yeah. And I have Jay Jobs's 99 Grand Am for like the third time. About once a year, he'll change something up. But this is probably the longest vehicle I've ever had. And I get a lot of internet stuff. So then it pulls me off and to get that done. And then I get back on the car. So I
Right.
did a wall. He had 415s and then took all that out. And I got 6 Nightshade V412s in there right now. So it's fiberglass molded. I painted it, the baffle. It's got some steel, not a cage, but Baltic birch, steel. I painted the baffle a metallic blue,
Hmm.
and then I airbrushed some lightning bolts, like to match his vehicle wrap because he has like a different blue. And then I redid his well. I had fiberglass his roof the first time about 3 years ago, and did some plexiglass. Had Jared Gibson do his CNC machine and etch my logo in it. And then I had speaker pods coming down, and I always didn't like those because they're really just like, because you got speakers and the roof's only, but so high up in
Right.
whatever. But so I shaved those off, and I did this little raised panel. I painted metallic blue. Cock box, awesome. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, that thing's pretty awesome.
And then I got LEDs lighting it up. The amp rack, I got 4. That was Jay's idea to put the amps underneath the box. So got 3 of the 500.4s of the new SFB amplifiers, and I got little plexiglass things that light up blue. But right now I got the amp rack because for the 8Ks in the trunk, and I'm waiting on Jim's metal. He's got a new style of fuse blocks. So, waiting on that because there's not a lot of room in this trunk because that air ride system is kind of in the way. And
Is this is that Jim's Machine Works?
Yes, Jim's Metal Works. Yep.
I met him in Las Vegas. He seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah, really cool.
He's not far from here. He's a great guy, actually.
Really?
Where is he
love
from?
him, love his product. Iowa.
Iowa, yeah, okay.
Yep. But Jay wanted to see the guts of the Salt 8K, so he had Barnaby at LAF make these plexiglass things with my logo, his logo, has LEDs in it. And so I had to kind of step them. I guess I'm trying to do my hands here. And then got a 190 amp hour C-Max that's in this trunk too. And so gotta get the fuse panel so I can wire everything up, and then see where this audio control DSP is going to go, even where this fuse holder is going to go, where the fans are going to go, around these, giant amplifiers in this trunk, and then try to make it look pretty as well.
Right.
But been fabricating for many years. There's so many good people, man. Facebook opened up like a thing, like when you're in your own little bubble,
right?
And then you see people doing this crazy stuff that you're like, holy cows!
Right.
Like I know how he does that, but like, how do you come up with this stuff?
Right.
Or how do you even go about doing this?
Right. Right.
For me, I've just been stuck I've just always been by myself in a way. So I don't have really anybody to have that extra way of looking at things, I guess.
Ideas off of, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes a detriment, sometimes not. But I am not creative, so I like to have people to,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just come up with ideas.
And then
it's like,
go for
it. When I was younger and worked at a shop, things were always in my head and stuff would I could just do it. Like back when false floors were the thing. I did so many false floors and just had these cool designs in vinyl or did plexiglass. Used to do a lot of plexiglass back in the day, plexi rods, and have the amps suspended up with LEDs. Back when LEDs, you had to drill them and glue them.
Right.
Put a 1K resistor in each individual leg.
Yeah.
And they were expensive in blue because everybody wanted blue, and that was the most expensive LED. Yeah. And they were $5-6 an LED, and you might have 40 LEDs in this guy's vehicle. Yeah. And he's wondering why it's so expensive. But it's just like,
right.
Back then, we had
it took 20 hours to put them in.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and you didn't have internet, or you did, but the internet is not like it is today.
Right.
So you had just distributors, and they had all kinds of stuff like, say, Amp of America, Jail Troy. There was so many of them. That carried stuff. So you were at the mercy of their prices.
I remember that. Yeah. And Select Products you mentioned earlier, they were kind of high, but they had all our cool stuff.
Yes, they did. That was the first set of headrest TVs I ever did, and that was in the 90s. Wow. And that was Alpine.
Dang.
Pretty cool.
I remember when the TVs came out, like that truck right there, that was an Escalade. So it was $2,000 just for the flip out TV. It did play DVDs. It just played CDs. So it was another $2,000 for the DVD player. And then if you wanted navigation, that was another $2,000.
I remember.
Can you imagine that crap?
I got one unit. It was combined all into one, and it was $3,000.
Yeah, I mean, just people don't realize how good they got it now.
2001 or something like that.
Ain't that something? Yeah. This was maybe 98, maybe.
Yeah.
This was, oh shit. I was actually looking for some of these pictures the other day. 8 500Ms.
Right.
Some of them were 250M. Same thing, just different chassis.
Yeah.
My second 1212 wall.
Oh yeah.
That's my Nissan Sentra.
Right.
I love that style box.
Yeah.
And then the old Angel amps, but they were the next version with the gray end caps, not the gold. We all called them Angel amps. Oh shoot! I was literally, a guy PM'd me and showed me pictures of his box, and I said, "Yeah, I had a Pac-Man box. That was my first 1212 Pac-Man box.
Right.
That was that was Rockford's first DVCs. They were called the DVC. And I had 12 of them. And then some of my kick panels, fiberglass, the Tweed.
Right.
That was the Tweed days. This was me and my late 20s or very early 30s. At Audio Express, you see a bazooka tube. Let me move this thing over
Yeah.
to you. There's a bazooka tube stand. We Alpine had alarms. We used to
Yeah, I
install
remember that.
Alpine alarms.
Yeah.
And bazooka tube sent us a display. It was so heavy. It was all MDF. It was so thick. You put the tubes inside. It's like a band pass. You think
Right.
about it. But as my manager, my brother was a combat photographer for the Air Force,
Oh, cool.
and came down. I was actually Precision Power, the art series, and you'll
Huh.
see the waffle style Rockfords, the waffle. You know, where people had to count the fins to see what kind of amp you had, because you could put double end caps on there. You could say it had a punch 100 when you had a punch 200.
Right.
You know, just stuff like that. But anyway, I opened this up and was looking for the old Select products. Oh, old Directed.
Oh,
We go to some of their training things, and they would have schematics, old schematics of stuff for certain vehicles or little trick stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I go to their tech things, and went to a Snap-on convention, and my kids, this is my son, on the OCC when they did the Snap-on bike.
Right.
Just cool stuff. Now my kids are grown up. One's out of the
How old
house.
are you?
One's
How old are
20,
you?
23 and 24.
Oh, yeah. Now are they into audio at all?
My daughter actually played her. She came down from the mountains. She was going back up to the mountains. And she played her factory Volvo. And I thought she had a pair of subs, but it was just a factory. But it sounded like it had a little sub to it. But she always, I would take them to shows when they were little, but I didn't want them to, and I kind of wish I would have, but I didn't want them to rely on it, because I didn't want them to wind up kind of like how it is here for me in this town. But they both work with tools. So my daughter does goes under houses and does all the mold stuff,
Oh, yeah.
encapsulate the houses. My son is actually got a 3.1, I think, average in diesel mechanic. So they work on freight liners, all kinds of stuff.
Right. Job security. There's a lot of trouble.
Or whatever.
Right.
But he's switching, so he's gonna find out that he doesn't want to do that. So next semester, when they go back early next month, he's gonna take IT stuff, because he's always been in computers. I guess he was just hunting money, I guess.
Not a bad thing. Plus, IT stuff is not usually outside in the cold on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was 94, 95. This was my first wall. I had 6 JLW6s, but back in the day, people did little diagrams of their systems, if you remember.
That. Yeah.
And so I can't see so well, so I had 2 of the 500Ms at the time and 6 W6s.
The 500 was a lot, though. That's a big amp back then.
Yeah. And then some of the plexiglass, and I had fans, and me and my manager took turns trying to etch plexiglass. So we taped it off, and we took sandpaper. And,
I can't imagine trying to do that.
You know, and we didn't do, I had neons, because we didn't have LEDs way back then. So you had to buy little neon tubes and
neon tubes. Yeah, I actually found some that actually worked the other day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here's some old mid 90s fiberglass at Audio Express, and the tweed.
Yeah. Have that in my truck outside right now.
That was Audio Express. My door panels.
Yeah.
There's some big 4-inch. God, I don't know what they were. They 4-inch 2-inch or something like that tweeters from Alpine. They were deep, and just monsters. But old Select products.
Oh yeah, that's where we used to get our actuators from. I didn't know any other place.
Yeah.
But so I'm gonna scroll through these comments right here and see. Sometimes people ask questions of you, and then
Actually,
I'm
don't
gonna see do we have any.
it was on private, so I never even seen any of these.
That's
Now
the
that I
reason
clicked on
I asked.
comments.
Yeah, that's the reason I asked if you could see them earlier.
Just because this is the old guy that's not up with the times. It was on private chat and in comments. I never clicked on the comments. So I was like, holy cows, look at all these people, man.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know what? We don't ever show a lot of viewers, but when I go back and look at the data afterwards, it's a lot of people that actually view it, and I don't talk to anybody that don't tell me, man, I saw the thing. So
here's so I had people telling me that I was in a book.
Oh yeah.
So we trailered my little Nissan Sentra because it was my daily driver. I got groceries. I put everything in the passenger seat or in the floorboard.
Yeah.
And then my wife had her little Camry. And if I had to take the kids to daycare, put them in the little seat and take one. We had two. But anyway, we went to Daytona and people would ask you, can I take a picture of your stereo? I was like, hell yeah. But they would ask you. And then found out I was in this Haynes manual to repair your car, you find an advance or.
Yeah, I never seen that one. I thought they were vehicle specific.
Well, they had ones to do import tuners, 4x4, work on your,
I have one specifically for my pickup. Oh yeah.
So I am actually in here. I'm the guy, if you can see it, I had sideburns and I was talking to that guy in the extreme vehicle. And, here's a whole nother thing. In the early 90s, the big guys and mid 90s, even later 90s, a lot of these big guys were stuck up. And they would slam the door in your face because they didn't want you to see their box or copy it. And they would have like curtains or things that would cover it. And if they had their door open and you were peeking your head, they'd slam it in your face. They wouldn't talk to you. They were so stuck on themselves. And I swore I was never like that, but I would never be like that.
Right. I remember I got to see lots of them just because I judged for USAC for years at finals, and so I got to see a lot of the real deal builds. I judged probably most everybody, all the big guys back in those days, but anyway, so look, I think we're gonna round it up for this evening. It's 9:30 where you are, right? And
Yep.
I've asked people for some questions, but I don't think we've gotten any.
That's my little blue car with the 1212s I showed you.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that box worked.
I just love that box. It's not friendly when you put a lot of power on it nowadays because if you don't have a lot of room between the inner six, but yeah.
Well, I would like to say I really appreciate you coming on tonight, Scott. I know you're a big man.
It's been a lot of fun.
You put out a great product, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you all so much for even asking me on here.
We appreciate you.
Really cool first time ever done anything like this.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you coming on, man.
I appreciate y'all.
It's been fun to me, especially going down this old memory lane, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, all righty, sir. Y'all, thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next Monday. And Scott, once again, thanks to you, man. And
thank you all so much, and thank you all everybody that commented and came on here.
It'll be on there if you want to. I know you probably didn't get to see, but it'll be on the Base Wars page if you want to go check it out a little later. Cool. But anyway, thanks, and we'll see you guys next week.
We appreciate it.